Dear friends, dear students, welcome to our third Political Science 102 class. Today we'll be talking about police and politics and army and politics. To begin with, the police forces are the organ of the state which are basically responsible to preserve the public order and to preserve the internal security of the state. For instance, the police forces struggle against the criminals. They struggle against people who challenge the public order and who violate the law. While the army is obliged to safeguard the state, the nation state, from external enemies, the police is mainly obliged to preserve the internal law and order. For instance, the robbers, the thieves, are encountered by the police forces because they violate the law, and the police forces try to capture them, and when they are captured, they are punished through the legal system. Dear friends, there are some divergent theories about the police forces. We have some different theories in approaching to the role of police forces in politics. The one perspective is the liberal perspective. According to the liberal perspective, the police forces protect individuals from each other, from other individuals. So the police protects individuals from each other. That is to say, the crimes are committed by individuals and the crimes are directed against individuals. So the police forces secure us from each other. That's the main logic of the liberal perspective as a form of theory considering the relationship between the police and the politics. According to the liberal perspective, the police safeguards the rights and liberties of whom? Of course, of individuals. And accordingly, additionally, the police forces supplement the judiciary, but the police organs have no political role. This is the liberal perspective in accounting for the role of the police forces in political life. According to the liberal perspective, the police forces have no political role, or at least they should have no political role. According to the conservative approach, as the humankind, according to conservative political ideology, the humankind is morally and ethically weak. So, the humankind is an existence, is a being that can commit crimes against the other men and women. So the police forces are essential to preserve the law and order, preserve law and order. So actually, a state requires the police forces to have its authority, to have its sovereignty and hegemony within its own borders. If there is no police forces, according to the conservative approach, there will be a chaos because the humankind is morally weak, ethically weak, and actually the humankind is a potential criminal, according to the conservative approach. So, according to the conservative approach, the police forces are essentially a part of politics because without them we cannot preserve the public order. And everyone might violate the law and order if everyone might violate the law and order if we don't have the police organs safeguarding the public order. Another approach, dear friends, about the issue is the radical approach. According to the radical approach, the police forces protect the state and they don't care about citizens. That's the radical approach's point of view. For instance, according to the radical approach, I recently read an article, a radical approach about the police theory. For instance, the author of the article was asking, she says, I've been to Brussels once upon a time, and in the Brussels, one of the capital of the European Union, armed men, armed police forces were safeguarding the buildings, the key buildings of the European Union from potential terrorist attacks. But how about the innocent citizens? How about the unarmed citizens? There were no form of police protection for them. So according to the radical approach, the police protects the state, not the individuals, not the citizens. So safeguarding the citizens' life, rights, property, etc. is at the second priority. It's not a priority, it's at the second plan for the police forces, according to what? According to radical approach. So according to the radical point of view, the police forces have the priority to safeguard the state, the state's institutions, the state's, elite, the statesman, etc. And according to the Marxist approach, that's another approach explaining the role of police forces in politics. As usual, the Marxist point of view generally focus on the private property and class conflicts, and according to the Marxist approach, the police forces safeguard the private properties of the rich individuals. So that's their priority according to the Marxist approach. Dear friends, there is another concept about the relationship between politics and police, and it's named as the political police. According to the notion of the political police, the police forces are trained based on conservative values. So, according to that theory, police forces treat workers, protesters, women, and ethnic minorities in an antipathetic way. So, according to the political police notion, the police has its own ideological formation, and that's conservative. And as a part of a conservative point of view, they treat workers, protesters, ethnic minorities, and women in a bad way, according to the political police theorem. That's another theory. And let's give some examples of the operation of police in some different countries. For instance, in France, the regulation of the police activities and the accountability of the police has a centralist character. The national police forces are led by and are accountable to the Minister of Interior. So there is a civil authority above the police forces. The gendarme, the police of the rural areas, the gendarme, it's in French, maybe I'm pronouncing it in the wrong way, I don't speak French. The gendarme is the name of the rural police in France. And the gendarme is led by and it is accountable to the Minister of Defense. So the Minister of Interior is responsible from the police forces, and the Ministry of Defense is responsible from the police forces in rural areas. In United Kingdom, the regulation of police activities and their accountability has a regionalist character. In France, it has a centralist character, but in United Kingdom, it has a regionalist character. What does this mean? Each city has its own police committees in United Kingdom, and the police forces are led by and accountable to these local committees. And finally, in United States of America. In United States, there is a mixed regulation having centralist and regionalist characters. Sheriffs are the local police forces, and FBI is the central nationwide police force. In some Hollywood movies, you see some confrontations between the sheriffs and the federal police organs. So that comes from that regulation. In America, there is a mixed form of police organization, regionalist and centralist at the same time, a synthesis of the two. Dear friends, another topic for today's class will be the army and the politics. Many countries have the army for their defense and security, and states require the army for their security, particularly against external threats. And the military requires a special training, special education, special knowledge, and special technology. So you have to be trained as a military personnel in order to be able to be a military personnel. And military seizure of power is another concept in political science that the scholarship pays attention to. Dear friends, coup d'etat or military seizure of power is the ouster of a civil government, a civilian government, by the military staff. When they seize power, the military staff, they might appoint a civilian government. They oust a civilian government and they appoint a civilian government to rule the country, or they appoint a government composed of the military staff. So, while in some cases the army just ousts the government and establishes another civilian government, but in some other cases the military staff rules the country on its own. So the military staff becomes, for instance, the government, the prime minister, the ministers, whoever. Dear friends, the military seizure of powers, the coup d'etats, happen for three fundamental reasons, three general reasons: economic instabilities, political instabilities, and sharp public conflicts or troubles. For instance, it might be a riot, it might be a civil war, it might be an ethnic violence, ethnic war, whatever. According to Andrew Haywood, one of the most famous and important political scientists, the coup d'etats happen in countries where they can happen. And actually, that's an accurate comment on coup d'etats. In some countries, there is a likelihood of a coup d'etat, but in some others, there is no likelihood of a coup d'etat. And an interesting fact, the Indian democracy is still considered to be a developing democracy, but there had been no seizure of power in the Indian history. On the other hand, in Greece and Spain, two members of the European Union and two democracies that are considered to be consolidated democracies, in both countries there had been long-lasting military regimes. That's an interesting fact. So, to repeat and sum up, the police is the organ responsible from preserving the internal law and order in one country. According to the liberal perspective, the police protects the individuals from each other and they protect the rights and liberties, but the police forces does not have a political role. On the other hand, according to the conservative approach, the police is a part of politics, so the police organs have a political role. And since the humankind is morally weak, we need the police forces to preserve the public order. And the state requires the police organs to preserve its hegemony and sovereignty and dominance, of course, within its own borders. According to the radical approach, the police is for the state, not for the citizen. And according to the Marxist approach, the police is for the rich, not for the poor. And according to the term political police, the police organs are trained based on some conservative values and they treat in an antipathetic way, in a bad way, in other words, against women, ethnic minorities, workers and protesters. And there are some different organization models in police forces. In France, the national police is led by and are accountable to the Ministry of Interior, and the gendarme, the police of rural areas, is led by and accountable to the Minister of Defense. In in France, the character of the police organization has a centralist essence. It has a centralist character. The French national police and gendarme, they have a centralist character in their organization method. In United Kingdom, the police forces have a regionalist character. The police forces are accountable to the local committees, and in United States there is a mixture of the two, both regionalist and centralist, sheriffs and FBI. Sheriffs the local and FBI the central. And about the army, the states require armies for their security, particularly against the external threats, and the military requires special training, special education, special knowledge, and special technology. And sometimes, in some countries, the military seizes power and ousts the government. And when they oust the government, the army leaders might appoint a civilian government, or they might appoint a military government. The coup d'etats happen generally due to economic instabilities, due to political instabilities, and due to sharp public conflicts or troubles. And according to Andrew Haywood, coup d'etats happen in countries they can happen. Dear friends, that's it for today's class. I'll be pleased to meet you in our next class, in our forthcoming class. Have a nice day. Thank you for listening me.